Shane McMahon and AEW have not been able to separate themselves from the news lately. Every time you hear about Shane McMahon, it seems to be loosely tied to the AEW. Why is this seemingly congruent relationship seeming to blossom into something that we may see on air? And it seems to be that is going to be the case more and more as the days progress. I mean, it seems like these AEW wrestlers or AEW staff keep running into Shane McMahon on an airplane or at the airport. It's like these AEW wrestlers can't get this mother Shane off this mother plane.
Enough is enough! Everybody strap in!
You know what I mean? So is it the case that Shane McMahon is actually working with the AEW? And if that is the case, are we going to see some type of Shane World Order? Because the name on the AEW contract that's taking over the company is McMahon.
Shane McMahon. Oh my God!
But it's... I don't know. I think it's interesting that, you got a picture with Shane and Tony. They were having a private meeting at a Texas airport right before AEW did the partnership with Texas. And they had a string of shows there, like a series of events. And then you had Shane McMahon with the Young Bucks recently, right? And if it does turn out to be Shane McMahon in AEW, is that picture of Shane McMahon and the Young Bucks the equivalent of a fan taking a Polaroid of Hulk Hogan with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall at the airport before Hulk Hogan turned on WCW on that fateful night at Bash at the Beach 1996. I'm telling you, it would be fascinating if that were the case. Is there, a Shane World Order in the AEW? I'll be honest, it doesn't really excite me that much. I hate to be that guy, but I just got to keep it a buck with you, keep it 1,000 wow. As a wrestling old head, wrestling fan of 36 years, and this is the Wrestling Old Head, by the way, and this is my perspective of professional wrestling of today through the eyes of someone that has been watching wrestling over several decades, almost 4 decades now. And I must say that the idea of an invasion or a takeover, you really got to do an incredibly creative spin to continue interest and also to buy in, because the NWO did everything that they could do. They threw everything at the kitchen, everything but the kitchen sink, and probably the kitchen sink at the idea of the NWO. They split the NWO into 2 factions. They got the NWO back together. They had other groups come up with a similar world order type theme. They did the invasion all the way up to getting their own pay-per-view and also taking over the television shows. They had the referees involved. They had announcers involved. They had legends involved. They had executives for WCW involved. They had celebrities involved. They had rallies. They had protests. They had backstage brawls. They had backstage attacks. They had sit-ins. You get the point, okay? They did it all. What can't you do? DX did something like that. They tried to do it with the Aces and Eights in TNA. They've tried to do it with Nexus in the WWE. They tried to do it with WCW in the WWE, for God's sakes. They tried to do it with ECW. They tried to do it in ECW in like 1997 when they took over WWF Monday Night Raw right before the ECW Barely Legal pay-per-view.
I'm telling the truth, don't you? You know in your heart I'm telling you the truth.
So this has been going on for a long time. So my point is, if you're going to do this invasion angle, if you're going to kind of come from this, this point of Shane coming in and inserting his own ideologies, kind of tongue-in-cheek becoming his father in an instance, taking over the territories It's a fascinating idea, but you really got to commit, because recently they tried to do something with the Elite where they were trying to take over the AEW and get it back to being great again, right? Make AEW great again. They were alluding to the fact that some of these guys were coming into the company and making it something different, and which I loved where they were going with that. The follow through was very poor in my opinion, because they started on the right foot. They were talking about, no pun intended here, but they started on the right foot when they were talking about Adam Copeland, when they were alluding to CM Punk and even showing the footage of why we got him the fuck out of here, right? But then they did things like they worked with Christian Cage and they worked with Mercedes Moné. So, and I guess in a kind of a roundabout way, they even brought in Kazuchika Okada, who's from another company, but they're friendship, so I could let that slide. But you see, the point of this all is that they were trying to rid the AEW of these outsiders that were trying to take over AEW and use AEW for their own popularity, for their own types of achievements, and selfishly kind of suck the blood and the life force out of AEW. No two professional wrestlers, at least in character, fit that type of mindset more so than Mercedes Moné and Christian Cage. So you run yourself into a problem with heels against heels here. But this is the rare occasion, and that's for another conversation. But you do. I think you warrant a heel versus heel situation with the Young Bucks mindset of how they want the Elite to be and how they wanted to go about things. And since that wasn't executed properly, they're kind of taking a back seat to a lot of other prominent storylines. So my point is, if you really, really want to go that route, if you really want to go with the takeover, and if you really want to go with the idea of McMahon trying to become his father and take over the territories of AEW by going after GCW, by going after NJPW, by going after CMLL, by going after Ring of Honor, by going after any other company that's out there that works Rev Pro or something like that, then I like that idea. Oh, I like that.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, me too.
But they got to commit. So what I was going to say earlier, and I pivoted because I didn't want to deviate too much from the topic, was that I'm starting to feel like heels versus heels, even in AEW, could work, because they are definitely like their alignments in AEW are very fluid. You look at Don Callis, one day he's shaking hands with baby faces, and the other time he's trying to throw screwdrivers and have his performer stab another person. So, from one week to another, they're very fluid. They could be this, they could be that. And I think if you do a heel versus heel, I know that kind of, negates crowd response. They're going to be sitting on their hands if they really hate both performers. But in AEW, the ambiguity of the face heel, that divide, that line has thinned so much that I think you can get away with it. So if the Elite really were trying to go forge this mission of taking over and bringing AEW back to their image that they wanted to create, then I think it would have been okay to have them go after guys like Christian, or then have them bring in a female performer like a Britt Baker, for instance, to carry out the message of ridding AEW of what they call bloodsuckers that were just from up north, because then it would have made Shane McMahon coming in that much more of an issue, and then you could have seamlessly transitioned the Young Bucks into faces, right? Which I think is like, it's gonna have to get to that point where you're gonna have to try and reestablish the Young Bucks at this juncture, because they're not as exciting as they used to be. There's not a whole lot there for them to go if Shane's coming in and trying to take over, other than them remembering what the purpose of them being in AEW and signing up with Tony Khan is in the first place, and then maybe going back to the streamers and the freaking shiny pants, and going back to their rockers, Shawn Michaels, kind of form. if you ask me, I think they should actually do something like the movie Double Impact with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which was these two twins that were lost at birth, and then they came back together because they were going after the guys that killed their family in a brutal attack. So the uncle or their watcher was trying to bring them back together, and there was a lot of dissension.
Come on!
Alex, he's your brother.
Brother? Why? Because he looks like me?
And there was a lot of unaddressed issues going on there. So what they could do with the Young Bucks is they could split the Young Bucks off. One Young Buck is still kind of like, trying to cap for AEW essentially, and the other is like leaving AEW because he knows that it can't be fixed and he's gonna, can't beat him, must join him type thing. So he joins Shane McMahon's faction. John Moxley's in the guy's ear saying, you could be a killer, you didn't need your brother anyways. And then you got, Buck against Buck until, after some big battle, they both realize that they can do, that they need each other, that they're brothers, they love each other, they get back together, and then they go after the Shane McMahon militia, or the Shane McMahon mafia, or whatever they're going to be called too. Something that's going to have to it's going to have to flow off the tongue a little bit. But then if they are going to do this with Shane, like, who would be the guys that would sign up with Shane? So you got Marina Shafir, you got John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Pac that are there right now currently, and it seems that Shane showing up and joining forces with them seems to be inevitable, right? Because it's a perfect fit. All of those performers in some way are related to the WWE, and Shane before he left the WWE, he was doing like this Fight Club type of scenario. So in creative, it's very seamless transition to bring the Shane McMahon that he was before he left the WWE into this AEW atmosphere and team up with these guys and gal that exhibit that type of style that he was trying to transform Raw into before he left. That makes so much sense, right? But if they do that, then who else would join, right? So if you've got like next week 5, if you guys remember that, if I can find the clip, I'll sync it in here.
What is that, the Four Horsemen? What does that mean? You just said next week.
Next week!
So who would be the 5, right? Like if Shane would be the Ted DiBiase or the Eric Bischoff, then who's going to be the Randy Savage? Who's going to be the Kurt Hennig? I would say you got to do somebody that has ties to the WWE. Crazy enough, Matt Riddle would be chef's kiss perfect if he had his attitude in order. He would work out in this group like a glove. Matt Riddle, John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, with Pac as the high-flying cerebral assassin. I like that. It's definitely better. What else are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to bring in Raj Desi? Are they going to bring in, Raj Desi with Satnam Singh or something? I don't know. But I just don't know if that works. I don't know if you bring in a WWE C squad and have pay, have us believe that they're actually a threat when they weren't really that big of threats in the WWE. I don't know if that works. But right now, the current iteration of John Moxley, Castagnoli, Pac, and Marina Shafir, it could work. You add somebody like a Matt Riddle. But see, Matt Riddle's so goofy. He'd have to be serious. He'd have to be serious Matt Riddle. He wouldn't be a goofy Matt Riddle. He would have to be super serious. Not dude or bro. He'd have to be like a submission machine. He'd have to be a monster. And I don't know if that works for Matt Riddle. I think Matt Riddle would be smiling through it. It's like trying to turn, Rob Van Dam super serious. And if you ever remember the story of him getting like really, really angry at Chris Jericho, they told him something about his girlfriend at the time or something. I can't remember the story for sure, but it was like they really got him angry. So when he came out, he was like stiffing Chris Jericho, and he walked out, and he legitimately just walked out of the arena because he was so pissed. So maybe like in a similar sense, Matt Riddle is just not designed to be that serious. But if you were to bring in anybody from WWE's past, I feel like Matt Riddle fits that more so than anybody that's on the list, because you already know that you've got MVP, debuting with AEW, and it seems to me that they're going to stick him in a situation with Swerve. Whether it is that he sides with Swerve or opposes Swerve is up to, that's the question, but you know that right around the corner is Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and I've even heard rumor of a Powerhouse Hobbs being involved, which I like that. I mean, they should have been doing that a long time ago, to be honest with you, with Powerhouse Hobbs. Is giving him some of the a true purpose there, and being with a group that he actually feels like he fits in with, right? With Swerve's Syndicate, it rolls off the tongue. I don't know what you do with Prince Nana, though. I don't know where he would go if Swerve were to join with MVP, but it would be interesting to see. So then you would have the Swerve Syndicate, or the Hurt Syndicate, or whatever they're going to be called if they don't want to side with Swerve and they end up opposing Swerve. And then you would have Shane McMahon's crew. The faction line would be interesting. It would be interesting to see where they go with the Elite. Does Kenny Omega come back, side with the Young Bucks, because they're trying to save AEW because of all these factions? Do they go Game of Thrones and they have all these brooding factions just kind of trying to take over the AEW, and there's no order, and Tony Khan can't get control of things? There's some interesting things to play with here, but the only thing that I would ask of anybody that's an AEW fan, anybody that's in AEW that could possibly ever run across this video, past, present, future, whatever timeline we're coming from here with this, is to stay consistent and have a plan. See it through. I've heard that Tony Khan wants to do week to week, and he doesn't want to do long-term planning. I've said it in a previous video that I feel like he's doing that because the guys that he wants to work with and gals that he wants to work with are injured right now. So to plug them in when they're ready, you couldn't have a long-term story time. I mean, you could have a long-term story plan to then tie them in and seamlessly insert them in here, but I'm being devil's advocate here. I can see a way that you can do that, but I'm only stating this as a way to try to get in the head of Tony Khan and see where he's at. He wants to do the short term until he gets the pieces he needs back, and then he can go long term, or he wants to perpetually be stuck into a loop of just doing short term booking and then figuring things out on the fly. Maybe that's exciting for him. Maybe that's easier for him to handle that. I don't know. But if they're going to do that, if they're going to do something like these warring factions that are just trying to usurp AEW and take control, and you got Shane McMahon over here, you got Tony Khan over there, you got MVP, you got Don Callis, you got the Young Bucks. I mean, if they're going to go that route, please have a plan. Please have 3, 4 plans. You got 27 guys in creative that are helping you out, essentially, or at least that's what he said. Have a plan, right? We all should have a plan. Everybody should have a plan. I should have had a plan when I did this video, because right now I'm rambling Rob, and I'm running out of time. So, hopefully you guys understood where I was coming from with this. I'd like to see Shane McMahon used properly in the AEW. This is an opportunity for them to cash in on a lot of free press, because the McMahon documentary has just been released on Netflix, and they did talk, albeit briefly, about Shane McMahon's relationship with Vince, and that man, and I don't want to spoiler alert for those that have not seen the documentary. Vince gave Shane a knife, told him to stab him in the heart if what you want to get on the air, then you need to kill me, essentially, is what he was saying. Or you need to wait and take over the company when I'm gone. Crazy. He was in promo mode. Was Vince still Mr. McMahon? Was he in character when he said that? It's insanity. So if you want Shane to come into AEW, then I feel like, yeah, that's the perfect time, because everybody's talking about the documentary. It's all over Netflix. Shane McMahon was in it. I think that's a great time to get a lot of eyes on the product, because if he were to show up in AEW, it would be unprecedented. It would be crazy that a McMahon left the WWE and showed up in AEW. I mean, that's momentum. That's something that could sway momentum in a very positive light if done right, and it has to be done right. So we'll see what they do. You guys let me know what you think. Is Shane McMahon in the AEW? Is that a good fit? Is that something that you would like to see going forward? Let me know in the comments. thumbs up on the way out, you guys. Thumbs down if you didn't like the video or if you didn't agree with my stance. That's cool too, man. That's cool too. But thank you guys again for checking it out. Look forward to seeing more. And as always, stay tuned for more.